This video is for a student my aunt referred to me. She was struggling with the pressure she was putting on herself because it was giving her anxiety. She's a top performing student. First question I would have asked is, what is the anxiety about exactly? Specifically. That question matters more than it sounds because it could be that you're scared you can't achieve your goals. You could be scared you can achieve your goals, but it won't be enough. You might be scared that the amount of work you have to do to achieve your goals is too much. There's many versions of the problem. There's many things you could be scared of. I'm gonna give you a blanket and try to give you a solution that works for most of these situations. The first thing you need to know is life works with inputs and outcomes. You insert an input and it produces an outcome. You study, therefore you get the marks. You study this much, therefore you get different marks from someone who studied a different amount. You study in this way, you get different marks from a person who studies in that way. The input is yours, but the output follows. Now, if your anxiety is that you might not be able to achieve the goals, which I'll be assuming is the main one, here's what you have to understand. At the end of the day, if you do certain behaviors consistently, you will get a certain outcome. It doesn't really matter if you're scared, if you're happy, or if you're motivated by something else entirely. So whenever anxiety shows up, look at your inputs. Ask yourself, are they sufficient for the outcome I want? If yes, then the anxiety has nowhere to stand. You've done everything in your power and anxiety becomes a side factor. Something that's there but not a priority. You've already addressed the thing that it was pointing at, because emotions are a signal that something is wrong. So your main focus when you feel emotions should be solving the problem. You can feel the emotions, but you should focus on solving the problem that's causing the emotion. But here is the thing that no one tells you and no one says, especially to top performers. You are not anxious because you are weak. You're anxious because your identity is tied to your performance. The outcome doesn't mean the marks to you. It doesn't mean getting great marks only. It means something about who you are. And that's a heavy thing to carry than an ordinary pressure. Because it's not just, I might not get the marks. It's, I might not be who I think I am. That distinction matters because the solution to the first one is just better inputs. But the solution to the second one is understanding that your performance is something you do, not something you are. The marks come from the work. They don't define the person doing the work. See, I went through something similar in high school. The hardest part about it wasn't pressure from the outside, it was the pressure from the inside. Because in 11th grade, that's when I achieved 7 distinctions, which is what most people consider the standard of like marks. So people stopped expecting me to get better marks because that was their maximum. They're like, 7 distinctions, that's everything. You've reached the max. But for me, it wasn't everything. I wanted to go even higher. So the pressure wasn't coming from the outside anymore, it was coming from the inside. I wanted to go further. And my goals were pretty high. I wanted to get 90% plus for all of my subjects. I know what that internal pressure feels like. And I want you to know first, before anything else, that what you are feeling is normal. It's not a sign that something is wrong. The anxiety is actually evidence that you care about your goals. The problem is not that you're anxious. The problem is not knowing what to do with it. And the worst thing that you can do is run from it. Don't run from it. Instead, build evidence. Every time you sit down and study when you don't feel like it, that's evidence. Every time you put the inputs you said you would, that's evidence. And over time, that evidence becomes a track record. And that track record becomes the thing that manages your anxiety for you. Not because someone told you that you're capable, but because you have actual proof that you are. Because the thing is, you're anxious because you don't have confidence that you can achieve the goals you want. And you don't build confidence by doing positive affirmations and looking at yourself in the mirror and saying you're awesome and what. That's not how you build it. You build confidence by having evidence, proof that you can do the thing that you have to do. I'm going to make an example for you. If you write 20 practice papers and the first maybe 10 practice papers you're starting from getting 60s, and over the next practice papers you rose up, and then on the last 10 you got 90 plus on all of them, do you really think you get to the exam and get 40%? Do you really think you get to the exam and get 60%? The chances of that happening are very low, because you have so much evidence backing the fact that you can get 90% that there's no room for fear, because you know it's a fact. It starts to become a fact and not even chance. So you want to get to the level where you know you are going to get the marks that you want to get, rather than being on a place of doubt. Which brings me to my next point. Another thing about anxiety and fear in general, if you face it logically, by actually listing out the steps of what might happen, it disappears a lot of the time. Because fear usually comes from a place of illogic, no logic. If the fear is logical, you just need a solution, which means you produce a solution and you move. But the kind of anxiety that sits on you and doesn't let you think clearly, that one usually doesn't finish the thought. Your mind says, I'm going to fail, and then it stops there and loops, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail. It doesn't follow the logic to the end. And that's where the fear lives, in the unfinished thought. So try this. Take the thing you're scared of and walk it all the way to the conclusion. Say you're scared you won't get the marks you want. Let's work it out. I'm scared I won't get the marks I want. I'm going to study this amount, and I have seen in past that studying this amount produces these results. So I'm likely to get the same marks if I continue to study the same way. If I want to get higher marks, I have to either increase the amount of time or get better study strategies. So now, realistically, what could you be scared of? Because the results are predetermined. You're either getting the marks you got before, or you're getting higher if you improve your study strategies. And if you're still scared, keep going. Say you get the same marks anyways. Then what? Your parents are still proud, as they were. You won't be fully satisfied. You'll look at your system, you'll adjust it, and next time you'll do better. Life continues. That's the actual conclusion. Your mind instead frames it in this, and you never really think about it this far, but this is what your mind does. It says, I'm going to get the same marks, or I'm going to get 1% less than the marks I got, and therefore I'm going to disappoint my parents and disappoint myself, and therefore I'll get fired from school and I'll lose all of my money and I won't have any friends and then I'll die. But that's not logic, right? It's like your mind does that, but it's not real. Like, realistically, there's nothing to be scared of. So if you're anxious, that's one of the good exercises you can do. Just work it out. Like, what's going to happen as a result of this outcome? And if that happens, what happens? What happens after that? Usually it's just something equal to what would happen to you if you wouldn't improve your marks. Like, you just get the same marks and then you're disappointed for 2 days, and then you design a new system and you improve and you go forward and you achieve your dreams. Now, here's the thing though, and this is important. You can't actually control the outputs. You can only control the inputs. What you do, that's yours. But what comes out is not exactly in your power. So the goal is not to guarantee an outcome. The goal is to feel secure in the fact that you have done everything in your power, and you can only do everything in your power by focusing on the inputs. What you are putting in, how you study, how long you study, the strategies you are using, that's on your side. That's the side you own. And when you genuinely do that, it should make you feel secure. Like, I've done everything I can do. What happens after this is not in my hands. And if after all that you still feel anxious, if you genuinely put in everything and the anxiety is still there, then that anxiety is not going anywhere. You have to make peace with it. You have to learn to feel comfortable with it. Because at that point, the anxiety is no longer pointing at a problem you haven't solved. It's just a feeling. The last thing I'll say is this. It's okay to feel it. It's okay to feel anxiety. You don't have to pretend it's not there. You don't have to wait until it goes away before you start doing what you have to do. The anxiety is there right now. All you have to do is control your behaviors regardless of how you feel. Because the anxiety is not going anywhere if you put in all the inputs and you still feel it.